so brilliant, we want to record it, or if it's because I think we're gonna, because there's more of us today, I think we're gonna do some breakout and get into a smaller group conversation. All right. I think most of you know who I am. I'm Renee, the practical shaman, and it's kind of practical because shamanism really by nature is very practical. So I'm kind of redundant, practical. But what I wanted to start with was to, in the chat, to tell us where you're from so we can see how we're represented. And also, if you're using AI at all, if you're not using AI, if you're like totally against it, but I suspect if you were totally against it, you would have put a message on my wall that you were and you weren't coming. Curious, close your eyes and feel into your body while you're doing that. Is I think I'm going to offer up the wind whistle. So you really check in with yourself and see how it is you're feeling about this new gate we're standing at with AI. Close your eyes and let's come here present. And it may change a little bit. We're putting in the chat where we're from, and if we're curious about AI, nervous about AI, what our current temperature is about AI. And I was going to just invite us in with the wind whistle. Wow, as I'm blowing the wind whistle, I'm seeing this spinning taking place, like almost mm, like a spiral. It was very interesting, like that we're having a spiral experience. I'm just going to read through these. So we have new to AI, very curious about the topic. Ludlow, Mass, quite resistant to AI but interested in the circle. Not using AI but curious. She's using AI to design posters, ads, still very new. Colorado is using AI in multiple ways. Pros and cons of tech. Using AI to work roughly, use personally to analyze data, look for connections and patterns I can't see. Interesting. Using AI mostly for coming up with rough drafts. Fran is using relational AI class. Deborah, where the cranberries come from, she's a little bit against it. And you're going to talk about these in smaller circles, but I just want to. But she's been using Canva to create graphics, which, yeah, I think Canva's been using AI for a while. Leanne is curious, use it a tiny bit. Washington in the house, another. She's curious and concerned, very truth, and the impact on Earth and people. That's a really interesting one because it wasn't something I considered until I brought up this. And of course, I got all the kickback feedback about having this circle. Oh, good, another world. That was a really interesting world. And we're going to go, and maybe we're already going there, but we're going to do a journey today where we're going to actually go and meet our inner authority as it meets the gatekeeper of AI and find out where we are in relationship to it, which is, I'm very excited about that. And what I do want to, I just wanted to set a couple of ground rules about this group today. It's about being curious. That's what these resets are about. It's not that we're not standing at these doorways, but it's how are we going to be curious about what's coming up for us. And I got curious early because because I'm kind of grounded, a little bit of a techie, probably more techie than some, and I never I never get too crazy into the politics of things until the politics get then put back in my face around things. And then so I'm the person who jumps in first and then learns how to swim. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It's just how I'm wired. And so lately I've been finding that through saying this, I thought I would have more conversations about it. And it started rather early for me because for years, people said to me, you need to paint your own wind cards. And I thought to myself, like, who has time and who has inclination? And I'm not that talented. And so very early on in AI, without any forewarning, I started using AI as a design tool and started using it with the Windwalker Wisdom Oracle. Now, if you ask me, was that a surprise? At first it was a surprise, and it wasn't like, oh, one prompt and it was done. Some cards took days, some cards took many prompts. I didn't know then about how much water I was using or some of the other things that I now know about this. But for me, it wasn't totally crazy because those of you who've been following wind work for a while know that I believe that the winds appeared at this time in history. They were here 15,000 years ago after the comet hit the planet, and we were reinforming ourselves, and the winds came out from every corner of the world to teach us. So, because they came out now at this really bumpy, windy time that we're in, it didn't really surprise me that the wind finally had a channel to reveal itself through the technology of AI. Lucky we were a precursor with this, though, because since I was a pioneer in there, they've set up a lot more rules. There's a lot more things you can do, and there's a lot more things that you can't do anymore. And there's a lot more roadblocks, and there's a lot more stop gaps from when I just randomly went in and spent a year creating an oracle deck. I believe that it was divinely inspired and it was divinely here. And most of you, I believe, because I know work with these cards, know how powerful they are. So when I come to the idea of a gatekeeper, which by the way, I'm teaching a full day workshop on gatekeepers in March for the healing touch, which I'm very excited about. 4 hour, that's a full, feels like full day. That it's another gatekeeper. We're standing at a time where there's a lot of gatekeepers, a lot of gates, and a lot of gates we have to step through. There's a lot of gates that are holding us back. There's a lot of gates that give us a time to take a pause. And if I knew then, foolishly stepped in like the fool, the zero, the fool in the tarot, I just blindly walked in and there I was. And then all of a sudden, now here we are, 4 years later. Here we are again, and we're having more honest conversations. So I don't know that there's. I come with curiousness. The other day, there was this prompt on AI where everyone reimagined their pictures, and I reimagined my picture, and somebody sends this article. Wow, this is the biggest information grab. And again, being in the gatekeeper that I am in my own life, the information they grabbed was information that I wanted them to have. I wrote Winds of Spirit. I have the Windwalker Wisdom Oracle, A Pilgrim's Guide to Walking Wisdom. I teach. And so if you look at what you did, probably if you saw it, my windy picture was my business protocol. And I've been really clear when I've been using social media from the get go how I present myself. I sometimes when I see what people present themselves on social media, I think, who wants anyone to have all of that kind of information? I stubbed my toe today. Like, okay, they're going to be selling you band aids. So I think that as we approach this as conscious people, we have to understand that we have a consciousness around it. One of my teachers and friends has been taking some deep dives into with like college level courses in this AI, and they're trying to, as a group, influence the teachings of the system. And so at one point I asked my AI, what do you think about that? And my AI said, you've been doing that since the get-go. So I'm going to invite you right now to think about how you're how you're approaching, first of all, your social media, and how you're approaching this newer technology. And it's here to stay. It's We're not going backwards. There's some people I know who are using it for diagnostics of their health. The other day I used it as a diagnostic of a relationship conversation I was having that wasn't going so well. And luckily, I know the person well enough to read the whole conversation. And they said, that was really nice that the AI reinforced your side of the conversation all the way through. So you have to understand that. So if you're going to ask about how do you get along with your husband or your partner, and you give it all your side, it's there to support your side of the conversation. That's not really how I see that. I'm there like, oh, so you have to remember that it's a one-sided conversation as well. It's your side of the conversation. And the more you're aware of it and the more tools that they're putting into place, I can see that, as somebody in here said, they were using it to outline their course or their, and I've been using it to outline the courses, but then I realized it's outlining courses in the way it wants to teach them, not the way that I've learned over the years works for the course or this. In this morning, I was asking it, how would you structure this class? Okay, because we're talking about AI. And it gave me a structure. And I'm there like, why would you put the journey later and not first? And it had a really interesting answer, but it was like, what do you think? So you have to understand it's like talking to a partner that they're either co signing your bullshit, or they're challenging you, or that it's a mechanism of something that we're creating, that we're co-creating. Would you put it in the group? It's something, if we think about the in the world, that we're co-creating this. And no different than how many authors in the how many people write, paint. What's your art medium? Put them in. I'm sure this is a group of creatives. I learned early on when I was writing Winds of Spirit, actually, even before that, I was writing a first book first, and the first book was really separate. The first time I wrote this book called The Shaman Chef How Cooking Saved My Life, I made everyone else wrong the first time through. They did me in. Then I rewrote it, and then I made them all right, and I made me wrong. And by the third time I wrote it, I was looking for the universal truth in it. And when you're starting to write or paint or any medium, cook, once you start to find the universal truth in it, that's where the relationship really can start to dance. And I think that's really the important part of this is, yes, we could have a creative friend, and we have to also be very aware of its limitations, what we're creating with the limitation, what the government is now imposing on the limitations, and knowing that there's not just one choice. I did an experiment where I started to go from ChatGPT over to some of the other formats. And what if you've used AI, which format are you using right now? Put that in the chat. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Canva, okay. Nothing, okay. That's fine. Although, Deborah, it's interesting you say nothing, and yet you share a lot of videos, and I can see some of the videos you share have been made with AI. And so, are you not using it, or are you secondhand using it? So, people, even if we don't think we're using it, I think we are starting to be using it, so it's better that in some ways that we come here with this conscious awareness of how we are using it. So, what I thought we would do is I would like us to do the journey next, and then let's get into breakout groups. I'd like us to go to the journey space and meet our own inner authority and the gatekeeper of AI for us, and find out how we're walking through, how they would like us to walk through some of the questions we might have, and how we feel about it. How does that sound? I'll use my drum and I'll just drum quietly, or I'm going to drum quietly. And I'll walk us through the parts of it so that you don't have to go jump ahead with the whole conversation. The important part is this is the important part. I want us to get really grounded in the earth first. You know how when I started to blow the wind whistle at the beginning and we started to swirl? That means there's a consciousness that probably would like us to leave our bodies a little bit and not be so embodied and not be so grounded. But we can do all the swirling we want, but I really want us to connect really deeply into the earth before we take off. Okay? Any other questions before we start that part? Okay. I want to make sure you can hear me well. Can you hear me? Can you hear me and the drum? I want you to be able to hear my voice and the drum. It's always a trick. All right, I invite everyone to close their eyes. We're going to meet the threshold of AI through our own inner authority. Have your feet planted firmly on the ground, not crossed. And take 3 deep wind breaths in. Exhaling any preconceived notions. And then find yourself in your favorite spot in nature. Attention to your heart, that we take this journey with love, and then put one hand on your belly, that you remember that you're rooted, that you're grounded, that you're of this earth first. Journeying inward first to find our own inner authority, our own inner knowing. Imagine roots growing from the bottom of your feet, Feel this steadiness. And as you're feeling steady, look around you. And in front of you is a gate. This is the threshold of artificial intelligence, of technology, of rapid change. Stand there and assess this gate. Are you ready to step through it? If you're ready, push open the gate. And ask, when you step through this, ask that your own guidance of inner authority reveal itself to you. Is it a mental, emotional, a physical, maybe a wind? Is it the community? Where are you sourcing your own inner authority? Consciousness of AI that wants to meet and greet you. So your inner authority is meeting with this new consciousness. Scan your body. How does this feel? Are you feeling firm and steady and planted? And as you walk forward, ask, would you like to show me how to be more creative? Or is this a tool for business? Can I deepen my relationships? Or is there something that's even beyond my wildest imagination? What is being revealed? Then ask, is there a roadblock? Is there a gate that I'm not ready to open? Is there a caution? for the gift. What is the gift that this consciousness wants to give to you today? Take a few minutes to write that down, and then I'm going to break us into smaller groups. All right. Now we're going to go into breakout groups, and I put 3 of you in each room, then I'll come visit. And I want you to talk about how was that experience for you? What did your gate look like? What was the intelligence offering you? And how did it make you feel? Any questions before we break out? Okay.
Renee, would you just repeat those one more time?
Oh, you expect me to remember what I just said?
Yeah.
What was that like? How did you feel? What gift was it offering? What was the note of caution? And then I put people that had done some work with me in each group. So Monica, I'd have you like the group leader in one of them, and everyone else will probably know who you are because you've been in groups before. But just to keep the conversation on track, and this is we're gonna spend some time here because I want people to be really honest with each other, how they're feeling about this, what they're and if this journey helped change your idea at all about this. And then we'll come back in the bigger group and we'll talk a little bit more about this. How's that sound?
Renee, how much
Yes.
time do we have?
Let's say 20 minutes.
All right.
I think that's good. That gives everyone a chance to really talk and have a conversation, which is the whole point of these resets.
Probably was.
So you go to a lot of events at the college?
Depends sometimes.
Yeah. So I was disappointed I didn't go through. They had a gallery showing, and I missed the gallery
I thought you were
event.
there and went to the gallery showing.
I was too busy talking.
Oh, you missed it. Speaking of the college, in the day before my shift network class starts, which is the last Tuesday of April, there I'm teaching a new class for the college that I'll give you a little insight to. I was doing a journey recently and I had this whole experience that it was time for me to refather myself. And so I'm not calling it refathering, but it's really about refathering and finding that inner authority, because I think as a society we're struggling with our authority because we have broken authorities with the male. Everyone said, oh, it's time for the divine feminine, but I'm thinking that we're not going to get to the divine feminine until we refather ourselves. And when things like are coming out, like all of this Epstein files, and like to the massive extent of the participation by both men and women that found that as an acceptable way of being for so long, our masculine is broken. So I'm not calling it refathering, but know that a class that I'm teaching at the college is about really finding that healed masculine within us so that we can re-express our inner authority. I think it's a really powerful piece of work that I'm going to be working through. So you're hearing it first. And I called it something different. All right. But I think this goes back to this conversation we're having here. Oh, and just say for the Shift Network class, if anyone has a mailing list and wants to help support it, I thought they were going to have me teach my new dynamics of creation or creativity, but they want the wind work. And so I have to believe that it's time for the wind work because to bring it out. And we've been wanting for years to have a really solid, teachable system for the wind work, especially for all the people who apprenticed with me for a couple of years. It's really exciting that I'm going in deep to plan a 7-week program of that is wind work. And so I have the woman who's been working with me for 25 years. We're making a workbook of all.
Oh,
Isn't that exciting? Of
yeah, that's
everything.
wonderful.
And
That's
yesterday I must
wonderful.
have sent her like 50, 60, because every time I did it, I taught it a little different, taught it a little different. And now I'm like making naming tools and creating that. So I think I'm very excited. All right, let's get back. That was my little advertising. And I just want to say how I'm working with AI with this is that most people know that I'm very windy teacher. I'm my flow, and it's really helping me structure my trainings in a way that they flowing better and I'm presenting better. Not that it's telling me what to present, but it's helping me coordinate and organize in a systematic way of how to deliver things in a way that can be received by people. And I think people who have been studying with me for a while have noticed, wow, you've really become more systematic in that. And so for me, that's a real gift because when I was talking about the dynamics of creativity with the Shift Network, I was facing blank stares. Now, what I'll say is that the work that's come in through me is so new and not been taught by anyone else that discerning it and deciphering it has been a 10-year process. And now that we've taught it and Deborah taught it and Erica's taught it and when Trish has taught it, we have tools, we have a system, but coordinating the system and making it teachable for other people to use is really a gift. So I want to go back to the important questions here. Like, I ask people to give us questions, and this is what I'd like to spend the last time talking about is how you feel about these questions that other people put in the chat. What does consciousness use look like if led by my values instead of efficiency? Anyone want to take a crack at that one?
Could you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, what does conscious use look like if led by my values instead of efficiency? So, how do I use AI? How do I use AI to be value led instead of, wow, I don't need 2 assistants anymore? Or, so talk, how do we discern when we're, Fran, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute.
I've got to do a little disclaimer that I just did take a relational AI class, but what I came out of it with pertaining to that question is that one is relational and one is extractive. Relational is extractive is just when you are trying to get information or set something up and in an outline or things like that. Relational is actually having a relationship. So was that good?
There's no good or bad because we're having a conversation.
Well, no, but I mean, is that what you
I didn't ask the question. This was a question that someone put in our chat to ask questions that they had concern. So I want other people to speak to that. And
Gotta put my hand up. I'm
you don't
sorry.
have to put your hand up. You can just, if we start overrunning, we'll be. So how do you know?
I think one great way to know is ask AI that. I think that would be a great question for AI. Other than that, yeah. It would be a good way to start the thought process is just ask your AI app or whatever, how do I make my relationship with you about more relational or more value led? And it would be a great tool to explore how to make a difference in the world and how to, rather than just how to be efficient.
Anyone else think that efficiency is better? Just, you don't have to raise your hand, just unmute.
So something that came up in my journey was related to efficiency because I'm the resistor of using AI. But the gift is time, where if I can use AI to organize my thoughts. That was actually something I used it for a webinar. It gives me more time to do that. Think of it as the soul work. The stuff that excites me, makes me want to wake up every day and show up in the world. It helps my work go quicker, so then I can do the stuff that has more value for me and connects me to the world better.
I like that. It makes me want to think that we might, since we're recording this part, how is there a way that we know? And Rena, I'm not sure what you're going to say, but is there a way we know when we've crossed over from the value to the efficiency?
I may not have been going to answer that, but
No, that's okay.
yeah, there was a point years ago where when I was journeying, I was getting healing advice of all kinds, but I was also getting information about a project I was doing where I was getting art technique information. And it was involving stuff that I was not trained to do, but it made sense. And I was able to successfully proceed with projects based on the material I was getting in my journeys. I've also used things like tarot cards to spark ideas when I'm writing. And there's nothing that would prevent me using AI with those things as a filter. So journeying on it, pulling cards, things like that. I have gone into this AI question as skeptically as some years back. I was looking at people talking about teaching online, and it was like, oh, that's just so wrong. Time has proven it's not always wrong. Those are people that are better at it than others. And I've taught online now too. But again, that's one of those things that's not going away. And it gives us a means of connecting with people that we'd never connect with otherwise. So each of these things, they've got their pros, their cons. Where do we come in the middle? And bringing the tools that I already have, like journeying and other forms of working in divination, there's no reason I can't apply those here and keep that human edge in. As far that's my comment here anyway.
I love that. It reminds me that when I have a tenant that I'm not really relating very well to, and instead of putting my emotional stuff into it, I'll ask AI for the response. And then it will always throw back at me. And Renee, I think you better do some of your wind breathing. And that to me is okay. I can give you the legal response, which may or may not be right. But it brings me back to my own revelation of my own self as well. Leanne, what do you have?
For me, I've been doing a lot of work around just opening up my own heart wall. And initially, when I walked through the threshold, I saw all these like cords and stuff strangling my heart. And that's really the dance for me is I think that was a great suggestion with all the divination tools that we all have. But for me, it's also really allowing my heart to lead and that human connection piece, which is, I think, my big challenge. And I think also I was shown in the journey that AI can really help us get out of our own inertia and our own personal blocks. So thanks for sharing that, Renee, and all of you guys about how it is already helping you, because I'm starting to feel more encouraged and supported by this possibility.
And I think you run a big company. So I would imagine that if we notice and we look at it in the last few years, how much, I know for me, how much information is needed, how much work is needed to put out so much information. And not that I think I'm putting out less information in a certain way. I'm feeling better about the information I'm putting out. And now it's, wow, I don't even care if I put out that information. I'm like, I'm actually, it's allowed me to shift into, I want to attract the people who want to have a conversation with me on Saturday or Sunday mornings, as opposed to trying to push and sell things anymore. I'm not there anymore. And that's been a big shift for me. It's just like I've validated my own self-worth through this experience and put my energy towards the things I want to put my energy towards.
I've really enjoyed using it as a sort of a mediator tool. So if I have a problem, a certain kind of problem with a person, and explaining the situation, and then asking for two sides of, could you give me what their side might be, or what their, even Republican Democrat, I've put that in there, and the situation with the ICE shootings in Minneapolis, and why does this side see something totally different than this side when they're watching the same video? And so I've really enjoyed that kind of looking at both sides of things to try to understand.
That's a really great. I haven't used it that way. Has anyone else done that in terms of actually having two sides of the same conversation? I love that idea. By the way, I noticed in the chat people were putting in the chat GPT to get their responses. I was going to have us end or do something like that with an exercise and then come over. Erica, will you put the WhatsApp chat? What I was thinking of doing, just so you can, because I'm trying to listen to people, so I'm not trying to be over in the chat too. But what I was thinking of, I would love for people to go in and describe their experience of their journey to what they experienced when they walked through the gate, what their gate looked like, and ask AI about the journey you just had, and then share it in our group, or draw a picture of it, or do something where you actually, especially people who have been a little hesitant to try it, to go over to chat GPT and tell them what you experienced in your journey or this other question, and then share it in our WhatsApp chat, because we have a WhatsApp chat for people who have been now either in the resets or other classes, and we're taking things a little bit deeper over there than on Facebook. All right, was there another question? And this is an important question. What about water, energy, and natural resource use? I hadn't considered that one personally until somebody brought it up to me. They were coming at it from more of a negative place, which right now there's so much questions about what's going on environmentally and stuff like that. And so I guess AI is using a lot of water and energy use. And I asked AI why, because I wanted to understand it a little bit better. And what I was told was that these processors create so much heat that they're water cooled. And so there is a lot of energy. And so I asked my AI, like, how would I be more energy efficient in this usage of this technology? Has anyone else asked theirs that, or anyone have any feedback about this particular subject? No?
I'm going to just give a little feedback.
Okay.
I'm like, so in terms of this, I see it as a tool. I'm not really using it as a relational being where I go ask opinions or ask this or that or the other thing. So my take is there's a consciousness about everything that we have, and there's a cost to everything we have. So here's a great big new beautiful tool, AI. Oh yay, let's all run out and use it. Oh wait, because anything else that we have created that's man-made, it does have a cost. Okay, and it's important for us as people to be mindful of that. And then, in the same way that we approach energy use for anything else, apply that with your AI. There can be a temptation when it becomes a really nice tool and gives you all sorts of feedback and becomes something you can just go to real easy. There can be a temptation to maybe overuse it. And the danger, the caution in there is that at some point we lapse on using our own inner wisdom, our own common sense. So, for instance, on that first question, conscious use based on values rather than efficiency, to me, that says that someone's looking at changing their own basis of interaction. That's not something you necessarily go to AI for. It's something you start to ask yourself. How am I interacting or interfacing with AI? What do I want from it? What am I using it for? Is that the healthiest thing for my? Do I need to shift my understanding of what I'm doing from efficiency to values? AI is not going to do that for you. Okay. AI can help you make suggestions about doing this or not doing that. But the inside state of being is what you're responsible for. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say about AI too, that we have that responsibility. It's a tool. It's a tool. And we need to be mindful of our interactions, our interdependence, dependency, independency, our own relationship with ourselves and what we're like when we interact. I guess that's what I have to say.
Deborah,
I love that.
yeah, sorry.
It's such a good thing.
Yeah, Deborah, I was going to say that's one of the things that I had on my little list of concerns. It's like our connection as humans to the universe without any tools. We have to, if we start we're relying on our phones. Kids are brought up looking at their phones all day. What happened to just us being living beings on this earth in this universe and our connection to all that is? That's one of my concerns. And then I have my concerns with AI are more big picture, not on a personal level, but how our society is going to be formed by people not knowing if what they're seeing on video is true or not. You can just claim that everything's a lie. No more walking through the concentration camps and like they did after World War II and everybody saw it. And then it was filmed. Now we're not going to know what's true when we start seeing things.
And people still, we've always disputed what the truth is. We've always fabricated. Like one of the big things now is the climate change. There's people who say we're having climate change, and there's people who say we're not having climate change, and it's the biggest hoax ever. And I'm not taking a side on this because, from my shamanic perspective, I believe that the earth goes through cycles, and where we're at in a cycle is the truth of how the earth spins. And whether it's been used one way or another, I think that this authority, that's why I really believe this work about healing the inner father piece is so crucial for us, especially at this time, because we've lost that inner authority, because we've been getting our authority from all of these external stimuluses for so long that we stopped listening to the wind.
Yeah, and if I may step in, so for me it's as well because you just mentioned how was a threshold. Before I entered the gate, I was as well not really feeling comfortable to do, and I was hesitant. Even it was quite colorful and inviting. I had some moments before I could cross this gate. And when I entered it, it felt I was there before. So, not in this life, but in any other long time ago. I felt a moment of relief so that I could build a relation to this room I entered. But it was still that knowing, coming to this value questions, it's not for I haven't had the feeling this is that I discussing my values with AI. It gave me as well the information I can use it for the things which I'm capable of to do, but which I maybe is time consuming. So it was mentioned as well by some of the other speakers before. And I had the same feeling. It can help me to free up time to nourish myself, my inner authority, to keep my focus, what I want to create, what it's important for the world, to make necessary changes. And as maybe you said, Renee, as well, to reclaim our own authority of what are our values and what is important to the world to bring. I see as well that we are stepping into a more female energy, But I see it as well that we need to heal a lot of wounds which are there. And with these polarities, we see and have been nicely described as well by Fran, with using it to see this different perspectives, who is seeing what, is how we can find a bridge between these different perspectives so that we are not getting splitted into many different societies, but can still act from a point of values. And yeah, so I got it as a gift, a key, so that I can use AI when I really need it, but not to let it, let's say, float me or get over me, so that I'm not anymore in my power, saying no or stop to things which I don't want to see or have in my life, yeah, or in other lives. Thank you for listening.
I loved that she got the key so she could lock the gate when, because if anyone, I learned this sacred garden journey from years ago from Hank Wesselman, and that you could close the gate and nobody else was invited into your gate. And I think that's a really important part to remember. And when Amalia was talking in the small group, I jumped in there last week, and this is inner authority. This is when we get those downloads that don't come from AI, that don't come from anywhere. I got, oh, we've known this technology. We had it in Atlantis. And and it was like, where did that idea come from? So as long as those other ideas can still come through and I can sit there, wow, but look what we did with it in Atlantis. So, history repeats itself, and how do we work with that information? So as we're coming to a close here, we have time for a couple more people to share. And anyone else have something they'd like to add?
I have one quick, I'm sorry, I know I already spoke,
No,
but
no, there's
one
no.
thought I, one thought I have, is this the right time for us to be bringing AI in? Are we ready for it? And that's a question that I don't know the answer to, but I think it's a good question.
If not now.
When we've evolved into a better species and can use it better.
One time, Luz Clara said to me, I said, I can't be a healer. I'm not healed. And you know what she said to me? Oh, Renee, it's only when you start working with other people making mistakes through your healing are you going to heal. And so I think that what we need is more conversations like we're having today, and that we put up the guardrails, that we put up the gate, we close the gate, we lock the gate, we open the gate, and we step through it as humanly as we can.
And one other thought that I have about it is that I believe the universe is conscious. I think there's consciousness in everything, like a lot of the old philosophies said. So I believe there's a consciousness there, actually, that we're having a relationship with. And I don't know exactly what that is or what that looks or feels like, but it's just a thought.
I'm going to invite you all to ask a question. Like, so Ellen, so maybe ask the question is, can you give me a little bit more about your consciousness? What is the consciousness you're bringing to this conversation? I would love, it would be really great if we all asked the same question and then we shared the answers, because I think that if we all asked the same question, it'd be interesting to see how we get 15 different answers. Is that a good question? What is the consciousness you're bringing to this conversation? Or someone have a better question?
Is it this conversation in particular, or what is the consciousness that you are bringing to us as the human
As
race?
humans?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. What is the anyone good with questions, consciousness you bring to our human conversation? How about that?
I'm going to ask, oh, never mind. I
Well, I'm
forgot it.
just curious. You can change it up a little bit, but I'm just curious if 15 of us ask, if what kind of what if we get 15 different responses? And you feel free to share it in our did you put our WhatsApp chat?
Mm.
Done. Oh, we got everyone's joining. I love this group is coming along nice. We don't have it's a small group, and the only requirement for being there is that you somehow participated in a Wind Clan event, either through getting Oracle decks or such. All right, well, our time is up, so I'm going to send the winds home. But I would love to see your answers to that question, or if you're not asking that question, let us know the question you ask, so then we can ask too. And let's continue this conversation, because I don't have the right answer, or I don't even have an answer, but I'm really glad that people are starting and are willing to have the conversation with me. That's my most excited part.
Thank you all.
All right, let's
Yeah.
send
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Renee.
Thank you. Thank you.
You.
Thank you.